Hey everyone, and welcome into the Reload Podcast, along with Nathan Gilslater and Marshall Scott. I'm Justin Southwell, and Christmas came about the time Christmas came. It wasn't early, but as soon as the portal opened, we started getting great news, and here we are in the new year with the freshest of starts. And Nathan, we were joking earlier, full-time jobs and trying to keep up with this is pretty much impossible. But from Marshall's perspective, this is his full-time job, and he's still having a hard time because so much is going on. So just wanted to get your thoughts real quick on what it's been like, Marshall. What's been going on in the crazy world of PFB?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's seemingly like come in waves so far. It'll be like somebody will commit, and for the next 3 hours, there's going to be a handful of people committing. So I'm just like typing out stuff for like 3 hours straight. And then there'll be like a little bit of a lull and be like, whoa, that was crazy. And then it'll start to happen again. But it's been a lot of fun. Not often is Oklahoma State football recruiting sort of in such a predicament to where, there's national, talk about, who the Cowboys are bringing in and stuff like that. So that's obviously cool. Oklahoma State got its guy, got Drew Mestemaker. There's, I think, some worries among the fan base sort of going into the window, like, is this really going to happen? What's going to happen? Can they afford him? Yada, yada, yada. And not only did they get him, they get Caleb Hawkins, they get Wyatt Young, they keep the three together, and basically the entire North Texas team is headed up here. So yeah, I think it's been fun. It's been a little hectic, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been crazy in the best way possible. You couldn't have asked for a better weekend and how you would have scripted it to go for the new staff. I think there's a couple of takeaways early on, before we take a deep dive into these players and things like that. Oklahoma State is not poor. Despite what you have been told, despite what has been insinuated by our previous head coach and our old GM, like, they lack support for many, many reasons. And one of them was not because we are poor as a fan base. And you see that whenever you're able to hold off a school like Oregon for Messimmaker, and you're able to hold off Texas for Caleb Hawkins, and you're able to hold off these schools that have the support that we know is there. So that, number one, was one of the biggest things. And number two, relationships still matter. You bring a guy like Coach Morris, and you hope that he's able to do what he just did. And he did exactly that. And you saw signs of it when he was able to bring over almost his entire coaching staff. They wanted to come with him. He wanted them with him. Then you see the players do the same thing. Now, obviously, I think when you see numbers like what some quarterbacks had just got, I think Messimmaker probably could have gotten more. It's not like he didn't get enough, but he definitely was like, this is where I want to be. This is who I want to be with. And that's evident. And so when you're talking about laying down the foundation and the base level, the fastest way to get Oklahoma State at least going in the right direction is to do exactly what they did.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. If we had landed Zach Robinson as our head coach, for example, instead of Eric Morris.
Zach Robinson available, by the way, if we want to restart.
But you kind of wonder what we would do in this situation. Who are his targets? Who's he going after versus Eric Morris, who really has the luxury of bringing in all these guys from North Texas because what you mentioned, Nate, relationships matter. And I think that's a pretty big step in the right direction. Things couldn't have gone any better.
And I think that's one of the things when you look at like what Chad Weiberg did, when he did it, why he did it, how he went about it. It's just what you said, Justin. Like, you figure out, like, with this timeline, with the way the portal works, who, what, why, is Zach Robinson even feasible if he were to have done it, right? Those type of questions you get answered by firing your coach early. I know it was messy. I know nobody liked how it went down. I don't think we'll ever know the true story of why it happened when it did. But the fact is you got a coach who is plug and play in exactly what you told him when he did it, because we know he was Arkansas's #1 choice. We know that he was talking to other schools. So the things that you promised him was like, if I come, this is just my assumption, if I come to Oklahoma State, is the support going to be there to bring my guys? And it is. And It's more than that because you keep bringing his guys, and there's going to be more guys because we have an entire roster to fill out. So it's really encouraging from an Oklahoma State fan base standpoint.
Marshall, do you want to run down the list of some of the other guys that have committed? Of course, everybody can go check that out on PFB. We've got the transfer portal tracker right up at the top of the page for everybody to see. Big bright orange.
I want to talk about Mestemaker a little bit before I get to that. But this was something that, so I went to PFF after he committed, and I was like, I want to find some cool deep ball stat because we've all seen the the highlights of him just like throwing a ball 70 yards downfield. And the deep ball stats were like marginally, but not marginally, pretty significantly better than what Oklahoma State had, especially this season. But something that super stood out to me about Drew Mestemaker is that this year he was 77 for 119, which is 65% on passes between 10 and 19 yards since they've started tracking that PFF in 2014. Only one Oklahoma State quarterback has ever completed 77 of those passes, being Mason Rudolph's senior year. Nobody's ever had a 65% completion percentage in that. So that's like, that's some I'm not football savvy enough to really, I know what 10 to 19 yards looks like, but to me, that's like a lot of the part where defenders are, that's the general area of where plays are being defended. So, it's not just behind the line of scrimmage, or if you think Oklahoma State, you think like a sort of a really deep post or go ball or something like that. It's right in the middle of the field that he's been super prolific at. That's something that Oklahoma State hasn't had in a long time. That's something that really stood out to me. But yes, let's run down them all as we're recording this on Monday night. There are
Marshall, I do want to say one more thing about that, just to piggyback off what you're saying, because Eric Morris has been calling plays to set them up in situations where stuff like that is possible. It's not just sheer luck and having a great arm talent. That's part of it. But scheming to get these guys open is a big part of that as well. So awesome.
Yeah, that stood out to me super, because Oklahoma State this season didn't even attempt as many of those passes as Mestemaker had completed, because we saw Oklahoma State's offense.
Well, and this is something that we as fans have been asking for since Rudolph, maybe Korn, like being able to control the middle of the field. We have not been able to do that for a very long time. Some of that is coaches didn't call it at all because either A, they didn't trust him, or B, that was just the route combinations that we continued to run. And B, it takes second level processing, to your point, Marshall, to be able to be on the same page. Is my wide receiver going to sit? Is my wide receiver going to keep going? Is my wide receiver going to go up the field? Because so much of winning in the middle of the field is you and that wide receiver being on the same page of where you're going, when you're going to be there, and being able to put the ball in there on time accurately. We haven't had that in a very long time. And if you do that, that leads to the big plays. Yes, you want to hit the home runs over the top. Guess what? More and more, what does everybody hear every Saturday and Sunday? Deep cover two, high safety, however you want to say it. That is becoming more and more base defense for people in football. So how do you defeat that? Crossers, deep crossers, guys in the middle of the field, timing routes, read routes, option routes, right? So all the things you just talked about, Marshall, are things that he excels at. And that's what's really exciting to me.
And you got to have an offensive line to give you protection for those routes to develop. So it all comes together. This is stuff we haven't had in a while at Oklahoma State, and I'm excited for the potential of that coming. So yeah, Marshall, go ahead and give us a list of these guys. Most of them are just from North Texas.
Yeah. So right now there are 14 guys committed from North Texas, 18 overall. It's Monday night about 8:30, just about. We didn't really discuss this before we started, but what if we just went like position group by position group? Would that be maybe even easier? Is there any lingering Drew Mestemaker talk? We're all really excited about it. He throws the ball really well.
Yeah. No, I just think when you look at somebody like Messimmaker, what's the most exciting thing? He started 12 games literally since he's hit puberty, and they were all last year. And he's only going to get better. Like, that's just what's going to happen. So
there was the good and the bad. And
yes,
I noticed that some of the people in the chamber were quick to point out some of the bad. But to your point, 15 games, versus however many interceptions he threw in those 3 games.
So everyone always jokes about Coach Gundy. He had some of these things he loved to say over and over again. The reason why he said some of the things they were is because there's truth to it. And now what you're seeing is NFL coaches are saying, I want my quarterback to have 20 starts under his belt before I'm getting him in the first round, because they've been burned in the last 5 to 10 years by these guys that have one great year. And they're like, okay, what's happening? So you're talking about he's only halfway there to where NFL scouts want him to be. And what they want to see is growth. That's exactly what you're going to see. One of the hardest throws for a quarterback is going to be non-throwing side deep across the hash. So if you look at his spray chart, the only blue area on that spray chart is deep left quadrant. That's going to come with time as he continues to get more and more polished, as he continues to understand. Like, these are all good signs if you're an Oklahoma State fan, that last year, as good as he was, he's quite literally just tapping into what he has from a physical standpoint. He's 6'5", I believe, 210 right now, 220 pounds. So you're literally talking about, I joked with you guys earlier because people are going to kill me. But if you think about the body type and the ability of someone like a corn dog, I heard people talk about like Mason Rudolph or even a Whedon because of his ability to throw the ball and how quick his release is. He is a much better athlete than those two running the football. And he can do that. He can hurt you when they go to man. I'm not saying he's Spencer Sanders or even, obviously not Haas Haney, but he's more than mobile enough to make you pay. You're looking at a guy that is all first team Big 12 caliber. He has first round upside right now. I'm not saying he's going to be a first rounder, but I'm saying that is the upside he has. And so there's the most important position in all of sports. You get, if not the best, top 3, unquestionably, quarterback in the portal after struggling so badly at the position for the last 5 years. I mean, it just couldn't be a better start for Cowboy fans, because you're going to be in games strictly because he can throw the football.
Yeah, we were beating teams like Oregon, like you just said. So this is perfect.
Yeah. So there's my soapbox on Messi, because I think it's just great, and I think the excitement that he will bring, just because, like, I don't know, I know obviously we've been down so bad the last 2 years, but I was like, I don't know, you got down by 10 or 14, you're like, this might be over. And now it's like, feels like 2009 again. It's like, we're down 14. Just one stop, 2 drives, we're back in this thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's how Coach Gundy made his mark, and that's how Coach Morris has done it as well.
And I guess we should be pointing out, last episode we had a question from the chamber asking about if we'd be able to land a 5-star recruit under Morris. And now it looks like that has happened, because Drew Mestemaker is a 5-star in the transfer portal, which is great.
Yeah, Kyle.
Didn't consider that.
Yeah, I didn't either. I don't think any of us did. Kyle Cox wrote something today for the site. Well, he ordered, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, but then everything got flooded, and we're like, we're going to hold this for a second. But anyways, but it's just sort of talking about like the impact that Drew Mestemaker's like commitment has already made. Like, is there like a bigger commit that Oklahoma State football has had in like recent memory? He sort of like mentioned like getting Mason Rudolph back for that 2017 season was a big deal. Whenever they got Brandon Whedon, it wasn't really, it was about like whenever North Texas got Drew Mestemaker, it was just sort of like a whatever. And obviously he turned into what he turned into, but so
nothing really comes to mind, but it's the most excited I've been since Ollie Gordon saying that he was going to come back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about the same level of excitement I've got for it.
Yeah, that's super awesome.
I would say that for me, it's like even more so, because Ollie was so dependent as a running back on others. Like, this is the most important position in football, and it's been so bad at Oklahoma State for various reasons. And it was like, hey man, we are going to go into games this year, I would say almost every game, sans, I don't know, maybe Tech, where I feel like we have the better quarterback. And I can't remember the last time I felt that way. I didn't even feel that way with Spencer Sanders because of how much he turned the ball over. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's just been so long to be like, we've got the guy at the position. Let's go to battle.
Yeah, I think that, and maybe this is just orange-tinted glasses. I think, having seen Brendan Sorsby, I like Brendan Sorsby. I think I like Drew Mestemaker a little bit more. I think Oklahoma State's got the best quarterback in the league, personally.
He's a better thrower of the football Sorsby is very, very good. In my opinion, Mestemaker is a better thrower of the football than Sorsby.
All right, let's move to running back. So Oklahoma State has added Caleb Hawkins and Ayo Adaye is how I'm going to say it. How he says it, I guess we'll find out whenever the thing drops. But everybody, I imagine, pretty familiar with Caleb Hawkins, freshman from North Rock Creek in Shawnee. Ran for 1,400 yards this year, 25 rushing touchdowns, which led the country again as a true freshman, meaning he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. Adaye was at North Texas from 2021, so that's pre-Morris till 2023. That's when Morris got there. He had his best college season under Morris in 2023, ran for 1,000 yards on 7.1 a carry. Goes to James Madison, got hurt his first year with James Madison, and then redshirted in his second year with James Madison, played 4 games, and then came back and played in the postseason. So he technically played 6 games this past year, but was able to redshirt. So this will be his last year. But both guys that new Oklahoma State running backs coach Patrick Cobbs is plenty familiar with. You guys got any takes on these guys?
I mean, obviously Caleb Hawkins being the crown jewel here, which was the other, freshman, which I think we're going to talk about here. Coach Morris is not just getting these one guy. Like, these are multiple year guys, and they're signing the multiple year contracts. They're signing them to really start building the foundation. So Hawkins being a true freshman last year, leading the nation in rushing touchdowns, incredible job. You can see what I don't know. I don't have his height and weight in front of me. I believe it was 6'1", 210.
He was he was bigger back.
Big dude that still has so much room to fill out. And when I watch him, he's not as powerful yet. I think he will get there.
6'2", 200.
Exactly. So right. So I mean, you're talking about, that's pretty lean for a running back. So he's gonna keep getting bigger. And I saw his running style, the way that he runs a little bit upright, and he's kind of a one cut and go guy. I saw some Chris Carson in there, a little bit of patience. He doesn't run as powerfully. I don't want to say that, right? Because Chris Carson was such an incredibly powerful back.
This is going to sound weird, but it's sort of like Chris Carson and Chuba sort of ran upright. You know what I mean?
Yes, he did. Very much. Yes,
not as fast as Chuba, not as strong as Carson, but like maybe somewhere in the middle there. Makes a good
100%. And I think, again, you're looking at a guy that's still going to develop, that is going to keep getting better. I believe, he was a basketball player, if I remember part of his story correctly. A guy that's going to keep getting better. In between Hawkins and Mestemaker, by every single website that does this, they were 2 of the top 10 portal targets overall, right? Like, that doesn't happen at Oklahoma State. That hasn't happened at Oklahoma State. That happened because you made the right hire at head coach. So I think high end, you're looking at an all Big 12 performer. I think low end, you're looking at a Desmond Rowland, like very serviceable, can do it on all 3 downs. I don't think that. I just think low end. I think that's kind of what you're looking at. So if that's your low end, I mean, Desmond Rowland had, really 2 years of work and had 1,900 yards. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's what's going to happen. But he's got a very special ability to be patient and hit the hole when it opens, because it's not easy to be a good goal line back out of shotgun. It's really not. And he was exceptional at it. And that takes patience and knowing where to go, when to go, and just a great feel. He's got a feel for it that you can't teach. And you saw that. And I am extremely excited to see what he can do.
Some are saying we've got one of the best running back rooms in the country now, all of a sudden. I don't know if that's true or not, but we'll find out. Obviously, Caleb Hawkins, big deal. Ayo in there. And then we've also got Katie Jones, not from the transfer portal, but from Jinx, Oklahoma, just committing straight up. So that's pretty awesome. I don't know that I have anything else to say other than I like that the yards after contact, I think, was one of the statistics that I saw where he was like, dude, this guy can get 1,000 yards after contact. That's always a good stat. So you need to be successful. And we're going to talk about it a little bit after we run down the roster, but what it looks like, the jump from the group of 5, group of 6 to the power 4. So we'll tease that a little bit, but let's go to the receiver first, Marshall.
Yeah, so receivers at Oklahoma State has landed all from North Texas. Wyatt Young, obviously the big one. Miles Coleman, sort of a slot guy who was high school teammates and classmates with Drew Mestemaker. And then Terrence Lewis was a young guy. He played in like 12 or 13 games as a true freshman getting on the field. So I think that's a piece that I imagine Morris was like, hey, this kid's got something to him. I want to get him over here and continue to develop him. So 3 receivers, all from North Texas so far, joining, and that room needs to continue to grow. I think Gavin Freeman is the only one left who caught a pass last year that's still in the receiver room. So that's going to be a room that I imagine gets some more work, but it looks like Oklahoma State's off to a good start.
Obviously, the crown jewel of this one is going to be Wyatt Young. Yeah, the guy just tore it up last year all over the place. Again, Michigan offers, several Big Ten schools looking at him. Being able to keep him and do that speaks volumes at what the coach and staff were able to do. When I see him play, one of my all-time favorite Cowboys that comes to mind is Josh Cooper. Very smooth route runner, does a great job of the deep over route, of the layering, of the feel, of knowing where to be, when to be, goes and gets it with his hands out in front. And he runs away from you more than you think he would. And I don't mean that just because he's white. I mean, he legitimately, he's not extremely sudden in his movements, but when he gets the ball, you don't catch him. He's not going to come here and be Justin Blackman, but I think he could come here on a very good offense and be a Josh Stewart, Josh Cooper-ish, own the middle of the field, make those tough catches on 3rd and 9, go in that deep over route and go get that one on the sideline. He's that guy. And in this offense, and he's just a playmaker, right? He's just one of my favorite coaches. He's just a football playing Jesse. The dude just loves ball, and he goes and plays, and he goes and gets it, and he just goes and scores touchdowns, hands it to the ref, comes back. That's just what he does. So really excited for that one. You brought up, I believe his last name was Lewis, somebody that Oklahoma State recruited and lost the recruiting battle to North Texas on that one. So good to see him back in Stillwater. So yeah, I think those are the 2 most important. And then Coleman, I believe, was a high school teammate of Mestemaker's, I believe. So
yes,
having that come along with him, and just the camaraderie of, hey, this is how we're expected to run routes. This is how we're expected to do these things, right? You're speeding this process up. You've seen it. This is exactly what Iowa State, they're migrating to Penn State. This is exactly what Cignetti did when we got JMU. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get similar results. What I'm saying is that the fastest way in today's college football to get up and running is to do exactly what Coach Morris is doing, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, something that stood out about Coleman for me really quick was that his 2 biggest games sort of came in North Texas. 2 biggest games this year. They're both losses, unfortunately, but against South Florida, which is a game that they got dumpstered in, so they needed to continue to throw the ball. He caught 7 passes for 101 yards and a touchdown. And then in the American Championship game, he got 7 passes for 125 and a touchdown. So in sort of the biggest games, it seemed like Mestemaker was maybe gravitating toward Coleman a little bit more than he was maybe before that.
I'm excited to see. I haven't watched any major film specifically looking at Wyatt Young, but if you say he's got route running abilities like Josh Cooper was very underrated, and some of the crispiest, cleanest routes.
Hey, he was the best in man
coverage.
Yeah, no, he's so smooth in and out of his cuts. Everything is just kind of one flow, and then whenever he wants to snap it off, he snaps it off, and all of a sudden he's got 2 yards of separation. He's just got a really good feel of where he's trying to get to, and he doesn't rush. And then he'll snap it off, and then he gets separation. You'll like watching his tape.
Very nice. Well, I did get a little bit of a preview of that of sorts. Of course, the guys over at Feels Like 45 had a thread on what Eric Morris brings to the table with his offense and some of the films that they watched. Love seeing things about bunched wide receiver sets and orbit motion, multiple different looks of how you can run plays out of different types of formations, 21, 22, 11. Most of the time it's going to be an 11, but you got pistol in there, diamond formation, all kinds of stuff. And man, I just feel like we've been calling for it forever. We even getting the tight end involved. We've just seen vanilla offense for the last 5-6+ years. And it's hey, I'm ready to switch that up a little bit. Marshall, anybody else that stands out?
And you can get ready to move the O-line. O-line. Desmond Magia. That one's going to be another one. Braden Nelson and Johnny Dixon. Magia is what I'm going to officially go with. Made 3 starts this year at left tackle. Was sort of, it seemed like their extra tackle, their swing guy, listed at 6'5", 329. So that's, massive. Nelson, if I'm not mistaken. Also,
number 76, always thinking Russell Okung. So
Nelson made 11 starts as a true freshman in 2024, started all of North Texas games this year, sort of flipped back and forth. So that's obviously anytime you get a young tackle with that sort of experience already, is probably a very good sign. And then Dixon is a guard. He started, I believe, at right guard for UNT this year. Should have 1 season left of eligibility remaining. So he's one of the few sort of older guys. But I went and looked at and again, PFF isn't everything, and I get that they play in the American, but I think North Texas pass blocking grade for PFF ranked 20th in the country. The run blocking grade ranked like 10th or 9th in the country. So, if you're taking pieces from that, and maybe I don't know if all these guys start. I don't know, what else Oklahoma State sort of does in the cycle, but I think that's a good sort of baseline to get rolling with.
Yeah, I would fully expect at least 2 of the 3 to start, and there's still going to be growth. Like you mentioned, the young swing tackle with the unbelievable frame, like he's going to keep getting better. Dixon was a guy that Oklahoma State recruited early on and didn't get him, but he's been unbelievably productive. And who's the third one?
Nelson.
Yes. Nelson, probably the highest rated of the 3. Very good player. So I think 2 of the 3 would have started for our team last year. And you're talking about a base. And if you're going to spend that much money on a quarterback, you better be able to keep him upright. So I would imagine that's going to keep being a priority, and we're going to, find, our tackles and things like that. But I was very, very excited. Nelson was somebody I wasn't sure about. They did a lot of Big Ten, a lot of SEC people trying to get after him. And again, relationship won out. OSU had the funds to keep it in the ballpark, and he wanted to, be with his coaches, which speaks volumes.
Marshall, I got to plug again. PFP Plus, sign up, get access to the chamber, because you also have a thread in here for the tentative 2026 football roster. I was surprised to see on the offensive line so many guys returning.
Yeah, a lot of younger guys, not a ton of experience up there. So any experience, more than welcome. But yeah, that was that.
Have the depth.
Yeah, and the defensive line also, and we'll get to those guys in a little bit. But I think people might have forgot Jaleel Johnson was basically hurt all year. He's got a year of eligibility left. Hadn't announced anything in the portal. Deshaun Brown, Malik Charles announced he's coming today. So there are a couple of guys on the defensive line that'll be coming as well. So yeah, I put that together today. I put tentative because everything seems very tentative right now. That thing's going to change quite a bit, but. Oklahoma State's maybe in some positions, maybe not in as rough a spot as you might initially think. Anything else in the offensive line, or should we move to the defense? We'll I imagine run through these a little quicker.
Yeah, no, I would just say I would expect to probably get anywhere between 3 to 5, and that doesn't mean 3 to 5 starters. That means 3 to 5 guys you're bringing in the room, because this one thing that Chad Weiberg and Coach Morris both talked about at their introductory press conferences is like they weren't just going to throw everything into this 1 year and not look at still trying to develop and get this going in the right direction. So everybody you sign, especially in the portal, is not going to be your day one all Big 12 starter. Like that's just not feasible, and that's just not going to happen. But if they're bringing them in, they're bringing them in because they see something in them for whatever they've told them. So I would expect at least 3 to 5 offensive linemen continue more to keep coming.
Moving to the defense, 2 defensive linemen so far, 1 edge rusher, 1 interior guy. Kevian Huddleston led Oklahoma State, basically. Led North Texas in tackles for loss with 9.5 last year. Led North Texas in sacks with 5 last year. And then defensive tackle Fadafe Vilea the second. He was injured this year, which got him this extra year of eligibility, but he basically played every game from getting there in 2021 until then. So I watched or I read some Morris quote on whenever he got hurt this year, and it sort of sounded like he's like sort of like a culture setter type guy. So I think that was big for that as well. But super productive. I think as a defensive tackle, he's got like north of 100 tackles in his career already, which for those big guys, that's a pretty big number. So looks like they're off to a good start there. Wouldn't mind a just absolute stud defensive end coming in, a la like Wendell Gregory type, which it looks like he's going to Texas Tech, but wouldn't mind one of those coming out of the blue. But I think this is another spot where they're in a good start.
Yeah, completely agree. I think good size, one thing that jumps off to me, like very good size. Like this is not like a smaller G5 guys trying to make the jump up. Like physically, They've got the size to withstand. When you look at what North Texas was really good at from a defensive perspective last year, obviously run game was their biggest issue. Still an upgrade from what overall, but run game was not where they did very well. And so you bring in, again, the number one guy that they felt like they really lost, the tone setter, the guy that can set the edge, and then very productive in Huddleston. I think there's been some big offers go out to defensive linemen. There's going to be more. Those edge pass rushers, just like the NFL, those are going to be high money, hard to get, right? Production. So you're really going to have to kind of bank on an athlete maybe getting under G-Rich and hitting like he's done in the past for Oklahoma State. And so that's kind of, to your point, Marshall, I would expect, some more coming in there. But we also have, like you said, if Deshaun Brown comes back, if a Jaleel Johnson comes back, you're looking at guys that have produced at this level, added in. You've got some building blocks here.
Yeah, you mentioned the size isn't really an issue. Sometimes you think in the modern game, oh, what is this edge rusher? Is he like 220, 230? Huddleston's listed at 260, and he led North Texas in sacks. So that'll certainly play. He spent this was his first year at North Texas, had spent the previous two at TCU. I think he had an Oklahoma State offer coming out of high school as well. Defensive backs, we'll just get all these guys together. Kenigel Thomas. So Oklahoma State made a trade of Del City grads today with Kansas State. Kenigel Thomas comes in, Del City grad, corner. Rodney Fields goes the other way. Rodney Fields is going to look so sweet, unfortunately, in a K-State uniform. He's going to look like Darren Sproles out there, and it is going to be painful, but it's going to be awesome, I think. But anyways, they bring in Kenigel Thomas back to his home state. Colin Lewis, a North Texas guy, I believe he's a younger guy. Quentin Hammonds was one of the first guys, the safety that they brought in, and then Evan Jackson was an older guy, but he's sort of like a Valea that he's basically played in every game that Eric Morris has coached at North Texas. So it seems like another guy that is going to be very familiar with sort of the way things operate. So any takeaways from any of those guys? A lot of interceptions. I think like maybe 3 of those guys had multiple picks just last year or something like that. So
that was kind of what I was going to get at, Marshall. One of the things that they jumped dramatically in 1 year from a defense perspective was their pass defense. It was a very good pass defense last year. And one of the things they did really well was turn the ball over when you threw to them. So when you're looking at one of the biggest things on the back end is communication, knowing your calls, knowing where you're going to be, right? Not having to yell and those type of things, because you can't do that in a stadium. So you've got to really trust that everyone's going to do their job. Year 2 is usually a big jump in the back end from when a new defensive coordinator comes in. And so I think this is crucial to get these handful of guys back there at number one, at a position of need at Oklahoma State. But if you're talking about if we're able to keep, which it looks like, Day Fields, and he was unbelievable last year when he finally got his run. And then you couple that with, I think there's a Texas Tech DB, a Virginia Tech DB, talking about P4 level guys, then you're really starting to talk about being able to do something back there. I'm excited about that. That's the number one thing you brought it up that jumped out to me, was like, man, all these guys have turnovers. All these guys have forced fumbles. All these guys are around the ball. How many times last year, Justin, or 2 years ago, and then last year, guys, was it like there's no one around the ball when they're throwing these crossing routes or they're doing these things, like they are wide open. You can't get a turnover if you're not in the vicinity. So, yeah, great. One thing you didn't mention, because we hadn't signed anybody yet, is the linebacker position. I think that's obviously a big area of need. There's a few guys coming back in the linebacker room that I think are pretty good players, but I still think, I don't know if like a Wazlowski, who has 1 year left from a North Texas, if he's even contemplating coming over, things like that. But I've seen some bigger recruits supposed to be coming in on visits, but I would look to see some linebackers added in as well. So it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, just a couple of things that you mentioned there. Marion Horn is the Texas Tech corner who is supposed to visit today on January 5th. Those visits seemingly change all the time. It was supposed to visit today. I don't know. I'd assume that he did, but I don't know that for sure. He's another in-state kid that they'll probably, hopefully look to bring back. And then the linebacker position is an interesting one, because like Tristan Alexine was a UT Permian Basin Division II prospect that was like one of the first guys to sort of announce that he'd been pursued by Oklahoma State. He's committed to Iowa State. Landon Watson was another guy that was sort of in that initial wave of things. He's committed to Kansas. Tate Romney, I believe, was supposed to visit this past weekend. He's spent time at BYU and Arizona State. So those are some linebackers. But then, yeah, you mentioned there are some linebackers coming back, just not a ton of experience. Trip White was the guy that they got from Ole Miss. Carleon Young, who's a high-level recruit that a lot of people are excited about. Gunnar Wilson sort of seemed like an Eric Morris guy. I'm not going to lie. I think he's like a small-town Texas kid, so that's just that. And then Tarian Davis was the JUCO linebacker that they signed that had like 150 tackles or something like that at JUCO this year. But yeah, I think that's an interesting spot to look out. Justin, anything stand out defensive back-wise or otherwise?
No, other than Nate kind of touched on it already, but the PFF grades for some of those guys, the upgrade for that, and then the connection that I have with having formerly played with the new corner coach, Julian Wilson, and seeing that, he's coming up and doing a great job with these guys where they're standing out is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see that transfer over to Oklahoma State, even though he's an OU guy, but now he's an OSU guy. So that's pretty cool. I also look forward to what that looks like for recruiting moving forward as well. But yeah, I mean, as far as some of these guys, I think it's a matter of taking some time this offseason and diving into some of the highlights, some of the game film, and seeing what these guys are capable of, and then learning a little bit more about them. But right now it's just like drinking from a fire hydrant and not knowing too much about these guys and what to expect. But in a more general sense, I think I'm most excited about their potential to come up to the Power 4 level and contribute at a high level. So,
yeah, I think that's probably and we've seen it quite a bit in our, PFB plus chamber and things like that. The question, is like, well, how much is too much UNT? Can these guys come up here and do this right away? What do you, I would like to start signing more P4 guys. And I think there's a couple of things I want to make sure that we take away from it. Number one, just because a guy came from UCLA or he came from Georgia or he came from, pick your school, doesn't mean they don't miss too. So it's not like an automatic, like, hey, he's going to come in here and produce day one, be a starter because he signed with Alabama. So it's at Oklahoma State. So therefore he's going to be better than what you have at Oklahoma State. Right? As we've seen, the guys on it that just left a 1-win football team, we've seen visits and guys going to Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State, Wisconsin. You pick it, like the talent is not always the problem. So I wouldn't get so hung up in where these guys are coming from. Production, fit, yes, height, weight, speed does matter, but it's not everything. And then like number two is like production travels. You know how to produce at a G5 at UNT, while you may not come over and get 9.5 sacks again at Oklahoma State, you know how to sack the quarterback. So when you get your opportunity, that I still fully expect them to be contributors and compete at a high level, right? Doesn't mean that you're going to sign a first-round draft pick from UNT. Maybe Mestemaker is, maybe he's not. But what he is he's going to come here and compete because he knows how to play ball. And if you can catch on and learn how to decipher at a quick and a higher level, I think one of the biggest things for me is it's not necessary. You see it because every school across the nation is getting these guys from G5 level, and they're getting them and they're taking them and they're plugging them into their starting lineups and they're playing. There's a difference between leaning on them to be your dude and putting them in your lineup to be a contributor. So I think the talent level is there. You need to continue to build around that. But if you're talking about like a base level and what to expect, I expect highly contributable guys that we just signed from UNT. I'm not saying first, second team all Big 12. I do think some of them really could be, but I think you're raising the floor of this team. If we're being 100% transparent, Oklahoma State probably loses to North Texas by at least 17 points last year. Like if we're being fair.
Yeah, I think offensive wise, I don't think that Oklahoma State's defense could have, and it was getting better as the year went on. I just don't think that they would have hung in, and then Oklahoma State's offense wasn't going to do anything there. So.
Right. So my point being, so you're taking 15 dudes from a team that would have beat you last year. While it's not where you want to be, it is a whole lot better than you were. So that's kind of my thing is like don't get so caught up in the helmet sticker. Oklahoma State's on the wrong end of the helmet sticker a lot. So don't use that reverse psychology to be like, oh, well, we got one because he had an A on his helmet. And it's like, well, what does that mean? Like, did he play? Can he play? Maybe he's a great athlete. Maybe he's unmotivated. Maybe, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen guys like that come to Oklahoma State. There's several guys that come off the top of my head that were just like, oh, these guys are freak athletes. But they didn't do anything at their school, and then they came to Oklahoma State and didn't do anything here because they were unmotivated and they weren't bought in. So, I think I was so excited about the safety that came over from Miami, and he didn't even make it through camp last year. You know what I mean? So, like, there's so many ways to go about it. That just trust the process, trust the coaches that they're doing their due diligence and getting the guys in that they feel like are going to best fit the position regardless of where they came from.
And the only other thing I would think about moving on from the group of 5 level to the power 4 level is there's this natural barrier in people's minds and the perception of that, but there's still Division I football players. And what we tend to look at is one of the best group of 5, group of 6 teams making it to the college football playoff, and then they get stuck against one of the top 10 teams in the playoff in division, like power 4 Division I. And that's the comparison that you have, where it's like they might be a top 15 to 20 team overall, and that's probably where they're ranked at. But it's like, just because they're a group of 5 doesn't mean they're Division II, Division III. I feel like there's a much bigger gap in people's minds than they want to admit whenever they think about that.
Well, and there is a gap, right? There is a gap.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And especially when you're talking about dudes, like there's a difference between dudes and guys who play ball. Like everybody, if you want to be really good, you need 3 to 5 dudes. That's like plays broken down. He's better than you are. He goes and makes a play. That's why he's going to make a living playing the game. You need those guys, but it's not to say, to your point, Justin, that like you can't play at this level because you were at Tulane or you were like, I don't know if you guys watched the NFL draft. There's plenty of those dudes drafted, and there's plenty of those dudes on the rosters. And it's not exactly like Oklahoma State was having 5, 6 dudes drafted every single year. Like we were very similar in the way that we went about winning football games. And so it doesn't bother me one bit. And if you're talking about just from an overall numbers, let's just say they signed 20. I don't think they're going to sign 20. Let's say they signed 20. That's not even 20% of your roster. You know what I mean? Like that's, and quite frankly, at least three of those dudes could have just about handpicked any school they wanted to go to. And they came here. So I'm not bothered in the least. I mean, I'm not. So not a worry of mine.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that, because you guys nailed it, I was going to bring that up. Somebody in the chamber mentioned like right now there are 14 North Texas players committed. If they get a roster limit up to 105 and there's only 14, that's like 13% of the roster. That's not that big a deal. But then also, I feel like in the past there's been times where Oklahoma State has taken a guy from the FCS level or from the Group of 5 level or from D2, and that guy's got 1 year of eligibility remaining, and it's like, okay, we'll see if it works, or it'll either work or it won't, and we'll just toss him out there. As we mentioned with these guys, a lot of these guys have not only room to grow but time to grow. Of the 14 guys committed right now, only Iowa Johnny Dixon and Evan Jackson, the safety, have 1 year of eligibility remaining. So like all these guys have time to continue to develop. And then on top of that, this is just sort of how it works now. The Power 5 raids the Group of 5. The Group of 5 will raid the FCS. The FCS will raid Division II, and so on and so forth. And that's just sort of like the way that this ecosystem has become to work now. So yeah, I'm not super worried about the level. If this continues and like Oklahoma State is just like only guys from Stephen F. Austin or something like that moving forward, then maybe I'll get a little worried. But it's the portal's been open for a handful of days. Oklahoma State's got 3 top 50 guys already, so I'm chilling.
And outside of the freakish talent that Nathan was talking about earlier, I think the biggest thing is just adjusting to the speed of the game and being consistent with it. Because you see flashes of greatness from teams in the G6 level. It's just a matter of being able to do that over 60 minutes in a football game and being able to do that over 12 games across your schedule. Some teams are able to do that. Some teams are not. I think the best thing that you mentioned, Marshall, was the fact that we have multiple years with these guys where they can adapt to that and continue to grow. So this is a great foundation for Eric Morse to lay right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna sound bad in the way I say it, but it's not meant to be in any way whatsoever. I'm a huge baseball fan, and every year
That does sound bad.
Yeah, right. Every year there's always, a handful of prospects that come up, and you're like, oh my gosh, like he's gonna be a 35 home run, 20 stolen base, right? That doesn't happen your rookie year. But what you do see is you see flashes. You're like, hey man, he can play ball, and I think he's gonna pick it up and go. I think it's very similar. Is these guys a lot of these guys have the tools. A lot of these guys have the wherewithal. And it's like some of them pick it up right away, and then you're rookie of the year, and you're like, oh, dude, this dude's going to be a freak. Some of them show flashes, and then they also show flashes of making errors, and then they pick it up and they get better. I mean, that's just how it's always going to go as the game gets faster. And that's the biggest thing at this level is it's going to get faster. And it's like the biggest thing again is like your twos would have been starters at their ones, and then that's when you really start to wear teams down. That's why a lot of times when you watch these games, I know we're kind of getting off on a tangent, but that's why a lot of times when you watch these games, first halves are pretty close. I mean, like typically it's like a 1-score, 2-score, unless something's just kind of gotten wonky with turnovers. Like it's not like you're just getting blown out off the field. It's when you start getting tired and your twos have to start playing more, or a guy gets injured and all of a sudden you can't replace him because you don't have anybody close to that same level, right? And so you're going to see something similar at Oklahoma State. I'm not expecting 10 wins next year. What I am expecting is significant improvement in quality of ball and just understanding what's going on.
We've gone for a while, but we need to give a shout out where it's due, which would be to Brewster Consulting. Because the Reload podcast is brought to you by Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? Our processes are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Our data reporting takes forever and isn't accurate. We hear all the hype about AI, but have no clue what it actually means for our business. Our projects always run over time and over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology that actually works for you. Their team of Six Sigma Black Belts, PMP certified project managers, and seasoned data engineers have delivered solutions that are built to last for local clients like the Tulsa International Airport and Medify. They've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, Brewster was founded and is run by a proud OSU alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them today by going to www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. Guys, we got to talk about it, even though it stinks, but hoops. We went to Texas Tech and got blown out. It wasn't great. And then another thing that's coming up is we're about to play UCF, who just beat Kansas. So you thought you had a chance to catch your breath, maybe play a little bit of a lower opponent in the Big 12, and maybe that's not the case. But let's start with Texas Tech.
I've got red flags. I watched a lot of red flags. Bad body language, bad effort. I mean, don't get me wrong. Texas Tech is a good basketball team. They have a chance to go far when they get healthy. But like our lack of closing out, our lack of making the next pass, it was mind-boggling. It's gotten worse over time, as you would hope that things would go the opposite direction. They're going down. And I fully expect for the bench rotation to get cut a lot if this continues, because there's no way we are going to win or even get close to the tournament if you play like you did on Saturday. Our guard play, that was, boy, it was that bad. And a lot of it was just 4 shots. Like at a certain point, you've got to understand, like you're being left open for a reason. There's no reason for you to keep doing that. Parsa was absolutely crushing them inside, and you just at times refused to give him the ball. And then Marshall's favorite player, Ben Ahmed, the guy is he's coming to his own
7-0 run by himself
by the second, and then like he seals a guy, he's got him completely under the basket, and you decide to jack up a contested 3, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like what are we doing here? And you saw some changes from coach. He started running a double big lineup. He started doing some different things. Like you're going to see more of that until you guys figure it out. Because one thing I love about coach is he doesn't sugarcoat. He has said the same thing for the last 6 weeks, and they haven't fixed it. So you're either coaching it or you're allowing it. And right now, I believe he's allowing it. and I think that's going to stop here real quick.
Did you like the double big lineup?
I think it's your best. I think so, because it's your best lineup. The way that Ben Ahmed is showing his ability, man, when he turns his shoulder, like you can't get around him, and he's got a credit card vertical, like he's not going anywhere. But my goodness, like I love the kid. I think his ceiling is through the roof. But you pair him with Parsa, who actually can shoot the three at like a little stretch position, I think they're going to have to win, because Isaiah Coleman is not buying in. They're having a hard. I love Fran Fraschilla. I think he's awesome, but like he just kept saying over and over and over again, point guards, stop shooting the ball. Find your guards. You have 2 guards that can shoot, and you're not letting them do it enough, because every time they shoot, the ball goes in. Like, it's not that difficult. And so like those are my biggest takeaways. Is really frustrating to watch, because if coach has been telling Marshall the same thing for the last 6 to 8 weeks, how many times do you think he's saying it in the drills and things that they're doing it in practice? And it's not changing. So the biggest motivator, they've gotten paid. Now the biggest motivator is playing time. Either you care or you don't. Some of them are appearing like they don't care, and that's not good. One game into the conference schedule.
Marshall, you have your 5 thoughts on PFB. What are your afterthoughts?
Yeah, I'm trying not to, because it is just one game in the Big 12. You went to Lubbock. It was all these guys' first game in the Big 12. I'm trying not to overreact too much, but this is what happens on a night where Oklahoma State, known for all this high scoring guys that they've got, whenever shots aren't falling for a night, this is sort of what could happen in the Big 12 and will happen in the Big 12 any night that they play defense like that and that they don't hit shots. Outside of Anthony Roy, the team went 2 for 18 from 3. One of those was Parsifal. That was his 5th career make from 3. So I just don't know that you're maybe necessarily counting on that 100% moving forward. But Anthony Roy was 6 for 8 from 3.
And I think the other one was like Clary with a minute to go in the game or something.
Yeah,
like
I think it was Curry. I think Curry put 11 points on the board in like the final 5 minutes. That
right,
sort of made everything look a lot better than it actually was, and it didn't look really good anyways. They got beat on the glass by 12 boards. A lot of that has to do with the fact that they're making shots, you're not making shots, so that it all sort of comes back to defense. And like JT Toppin is going to get his, but I don't know. I just think that Steve Lutz would get upset if they lost by like 2 rebounds. I could only imagine what happens when they lose by 12 like that. And then, you mentioned Ben Ahmed. He came in and basically turned the game around, got Oklahoma State to within 6, essentially by himself, went on a 7-0 run. I just continue to be really enamored with the Ben Ahmed experience. I'm really having a good time there. But yeah, elsewhere that was a rough game. They come home, play a UCF team that's a lot better than people maybe imagined going into the year, and then they go to Ames, Iowa, to play a team that is very, very good. So good luck, strap in, and we'll see what happens after these next 2 games.
Just the body language is probably the most concerning thing to me. We talked about it a little bit off air, Marshall. The one play, we had a fast break. I think we're down 8-10. Like we were making a little bit of a run, and Isaiah Coleman refuses to give up the ball, and it goes off of himself when he had a teammate sitting there for a dunk. And like you just saw everyone else was like this weird look, like, what are we doing? Like, and so if you're not bought in enough from a team concept to pass the ball ahead to get yourself 2 points on the road in the hardest conference in college basketball, that's very concerning to me.
Another thing coming up, Cowboy Wrestling is back in Gallagher-Iba on Sunday. We've got Bedlam, guys. So January 11th at 5 p.m. You can also check it out on ESPN Plus, but if you can be there in person, there's nothing quite like a Bedlam wrestling duel inside Gallagher-Iba. Go check that out. Of course, we'll have plenty to talk about after that match. But do you guys have anything that you're looking forward to, any particular matchup that you're just dying to see, although we're expecting it to be a blowout?
I'm just looking for 133. I'm looking for somebody to step up at 133. And Marshall, you can expound on this a lot more, but in every sport, you're a freshman until about halfway through the season. And then like freshman, that doesn't really apply anymore. So I'm looking for these guys to continue that maturation process, start getting some home duels, and, let's crush OU like you should. And let's get this thing moving forward. OU's better than they have been in years past, but you need to put your foot on their throat and crush them at home. And 133 is the one thing that I just like, we've got to find a solution at 133 here.
Yeah, I guess we are all technically on Jack's Forest watch. He still hasn't, a decision hasn't been publicly made, at least, whether he's going to wrestle this year, redshirt this year, what's sort of going on. But if the 133 match comes on, the lights go dark, and I believe his walkout song in high school is Funky Town. If Funky Town starts playing,
oh my gosh,
everybody go insane for that one. But yeah, you mentioned Oklahoma is a better team this year than they have been in the past. They really hit the portal hard. So it should be a more competitive. I think Oklahoma State's probably going to still run away, but the matches themselves should be pretty competitive. Something that we didn't get into during this, Hosseini to Colorado State, sort of surprising. I think Colorado State sort of got a steal there. Rodney Fields to K-State. Jacoby Oliphant, late entry into the portal. I thought that one sort of hurt. He ends up going to K-State as well today. And then as we were talking, McLean tweeted out that Armstrong Nodum has entered the portal as well. So still a couple exits. There's some guys ending up in some pretty decent spots, I think. But Colorado State has got to be jumping for joy right now that they got Hosseini.
Yeah, you'd have to think Haas looks at this as like, go there, finally get some film, show my athleticism, and get rolling. He's better than Colorado State, and I guess that sounds terrible, but
he'll be in the Pac-12 next year for whatever that's worth.
Yeah. But I good for Haas. Going to be a day one starter, as he should be, smart. And I don't know. I've been to Fort Collins, great place. Love to live there, so good idea. But play for Coach Jim Mora, playoffs, his dad. So it'll be a good setup.
Yeah, I find that an interesting place to wind up. Of course, Colorado State went 2-10 last year, and then it doesn't even look like they have their full schedule lined up for next year, which is kind of weird if you're going to commit to a place like that. But so far, all I've got on their schedule is Wyoming, Southern Utah, BYU, and at UTSA. Best of luck to him. I hope he balls out. Johnny Manziel of Colorado State, all that kind of good stuff. So go do your thing, man. Johnny Manziel of Colorado State is a decent comparison.
I'm saying more Johnny football, not more Johnny Manziel.
We don't want
you getting over Fort Collins like that.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about that though. Haas seems like a good dude.
I agree.
Good deal. Well, anything else before we head out for this episode?
No, just keep it locked on pistolsfiringblog.com. The portal tracker is at the top of the website. Any page that you're on, it'll be an orange bar across the thing, and it'll say portal tracker. That'll take you there. And yeah, I've just been literally sitting I moved my dining room table sort of in front of my living room TV, and that's sort of Tulsa's got their portal house. I don't know if you guys have seen their coaches written it out on Airbnb. My portal house is just my dining room table in front of my living room TV, and that's where I sit all day. So just keep checking in on the website, and we'll keep things updated.
Part of me loves that portal house, and part of me can't wait.
I think I'm all in.
I want to beat them by 35 next year.
Oh,
I don't know. Maybe it's just because they beat us. I never in my lifetime thought we'd lose to Tulsa, and so now I'm just like, I want to squeeze the life out of them.
I think it's cool, but one thing I wonder is how much it costs. And at a school like Tulsa, could that have afforded a running back? Like, I don't like that is the only thing. Was it cost efficient to do this?
Well, I'm hoping that it was donated by a donor or something,
right.
like over there on 11.
But then why didn't they just donate that money to? I don't know. Yeah,
I'm with you. I saw him swimming laps and on January 5th on his social media. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's fun.
I've had enough.
I'm just wondering if it could have been a running back.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Well, this is a great time to follow along, of course, the reload while we are reloading. So thank you, Marshall, for keeping up with all this stuff and keeping it straight and sorted out for us so we can follow along the best we can. But if you guys would like, share, subscribe to show your support, we will see you next time. Keep those pistols firing and remember to reload. Go Pokes.